All right, so presentation that I kind of put together a little earlier today just to have a little fun with everybody was about, actually I don't know, hold on. Post redirect get. Is anyone familiar with this methodology of dealing with user-submitted data on web interfaces? Kevin kind of is. It's good enough for me. So what this means to everybody is, have you ever submitted credit card information to the web twice? Or have you ever accidentally deleted something twice, or accidentally registered to a site 3 times because you were getting impatient because you didn't actually know what was happening at the user level? You were looking at something. Oh yeah, yeah. What was that? Say that a little louder.
Anyone on ASP.NET accidentally did all of that.
Here's a quick primer on exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone knows HTTP, that's how you get to Facebook. Well, actually, hopefully you're using HTTPS. Post in itself is when you will send information from a form or an application, something else like that, specifically from apps, because you can incorporate a ton of data onto your post, asking the web interface or the web framework for something, and then get back whatever you want out of it. So the idea there is you're uploading an image, you're submitting some credit card information, you're submitting an order deletion command, or you're updating your profile information. It's not something that you really want to see in a URL, where you can actually type in that URL again and then inadvertently set it to a setting that you had last year. It'll all stay in your browser history, it'll all do sorts of crazy stuff. So you don't need that permanent link anywhere in your system. And for whatever reason, which is typically a good reason, the web developer doesn't actually want you to have that permanent link so that you don't screw up your own user experience. And then Git, on the other hand, I don't know if anyone's ever programmed a script or anything that's ever looked at Google and queried something. Just sending the Q parameter after Google will get you back a huge list of results in whatever format you really want it to come back in. That would be an example of how people use Git to get at specific things from a specific entry point into a web system. And so it's good for queries, it's necessary, well, it's bad for privacy because all of the information is right there in the URL. You could share it with someone else and they could most likely edit your content because of it. So you want to use Post on a lot of very more personal, more private interactions with web services. So the example scenario that I kind of put in place, just to demonstrate this a little bit, is kind of a hello world script. So with this initial script that I'm going to show you guys, and hopefully you guys don't get bored to tears, it's kind of a no processing time. When I post something, it's going to come back with a result just like that, and then I'm going to be super happy with the result. And I'm going to show you kind of what can still happen in this situation to kind of really screw things up. So the point of what I'm trying to do is I'm going to say hello world. But I actually want to replace that world with something else because I have a form that lets me do that. And then when you make that request, first off, of course you're just going to a website, www.localhost. Whatever. And that first request is, that first thing is always a GET. It's always saying, hey, I'm here. And then as soon as you use that form, typically you will end up using POST to actually send data into the server so you can actually make changes on the server side, which can then get represented to you. So let me figure out my keyboard here. Alright, so what I got down here is just a version of the code listed here. That's very simple. Very simple-ish. What we're looking at is when anything comes in Git land to this specific handler that we've set up that renders this form template. Oh, it's on black, so that's not going to work. That renders this form template saying, you're currently saying hello world. We're rendering it, we're doing everything else like that. And then we're basically doing the exact same thing when we post data to it later on, only we're grabbing some variables out of the framework in order to actually replace that word. So just kind of how that works from the user perspective. You are currently using Hello World, Hello Monkey. Hello Monkey, you're currently using Hello Monkey. Alright, so if I hit Control R, it's going to ask me to post that data again, and you're going to curse because you actually tried entering your credit card instead of blah blah blah. You don't know if this transaction went through. You actually hit the back button, and it's being like, yeah, you didn't really want to do that, did you? And you're going to be like, no, not really. I wish this was more smarter. So what we're going to focus on is, instead of doing that, we're going to try to process the post part of that as quickly as possible, and then redirect to a get input into the system. That way, when we hit Control R, we've already processed everything. We will never see, oh my gosh, you're about to resubmit this data, you're about to get charged $1 million again. Do you really want to do this? You'll never see that again, and your users will be much happier, and you will have a lot less support calls into your app's support center. So what that kind of looks like, and I don't know if any of you guys have used Sublime Text before. I've never used it until 2 days ago, and just having the ability to not use Shift while I'm working on this is making it worth it. Hold on. All right, I'm not going to show you what I discovered. But I am going to just say, here's what we're looking at now. So instead of the very simple scenario that we had earlier, where we're actually just generating the template and displaying it to the user for the first access, what I'm going to show you here real quick is what happens when we actually spend a lot of time in post land and letting the user kind of do their own thing. So I'm going to grab a word from the post variables that came in. I'm just going to, for the demonstration purposes, do a timestamp real quick so you can see things in the log. Print out that log information. Holy cow, that's just going everywhere. And then I'm going to wait 10 seconds in a really weird way. I can explain that to somebody who cares later on. And then I'm going to end the processing with another log dump so that you know that's happening. And then write out the result of that. So all I'm doing here is just waiting 10 seconds. We're going to make believe something on a database is chugging along doing something. And then I actually need to run it 1 second. Alright, so first things first, let's reload this web page. Hello world, hello monkey. Alright, so it's actually sitting here waiting for 10 seconds. Okay, I'm going to submit that 3, 4, 5, 100 million times. Each one of these is a different request that's submitting this information to a database process somewhere on your server. It's erroring out like crazy. Actually, it errored out like crazy. Here's one finishing up right now. Here's a few more that are going to come in that are finishing up. Either way, the user has no idea what's actually happening at this moment. They have no idea that they just purchased $200 of, I don't know, Kevin, what would you buy on the internet? VGA cables. Anyone else?
Monkeys.
Monkeys. Actual monkeys.
Actual monkeys. Smarter monkeys.
Smarter monkeys.
No, they're not the smarter monkeys yet.
Alright, and I can do this all day long. Smarter monkey. I can't spell that. So, have another beer.
Artistic monkeys.
I'm not using a Mac up here anymore.
This is not working, especially since you're trying to type smarter.
There's your beer. Alright, so there's smirks. Alright, is that smirk going to happen anytime soon? Show it 10 seconds and find out. Alright, what you're going to see real quick is that smirk actually shows up. What happened to those 2 other requests that I did? They're doing something somewhere and charging me more money. Charging me more money for CPU, I guess, right? Alright, so the way that I propose handling that, and the way that the internet feels more comfortable with that whole situation, is you actually want to use sessions or something very similar to it to help determine what's kind of happening with the user's interaction with the website. So I'm on Amazon.com. I have this awesome amount of stuff in my cart. I'm about to do a purchase. What I'm not going to do is sit there and process it while I'm doing the credit card information, and then let the user speculate as to what's happening. So I'm going to want to move a lot of the logic that was in the post over to the get. So now our post is really, really small. What I end up doing in this specific situation is using a global variable, which is very wrong, but for demonstration purposes, very right. All I'm doing is grabbing this word, making a hash using a UUID1. Anyone else use UUIDs? They're the best. Josh does. All right, and then I'm assigning that hash as part of a dictionary in Python land, telling it the word, and process is false. And I'm kind of going to explain that process equals false here in a few seconds. And then I'm going to redirect back to the original URL, whatever everyone is actually using at that point, but I'm going to append a hash to the very end of that string. So what I've done at this point is I've turned processing this hello world changing system into a transaction style system, so that I can always recall what exactly happened at a certain point in time. This might not be desirable for what everyone's doing. I have something for that a little later on, but this is perfect for now. And let me show you. I'm also not going to use my laptop when I do this. So right now, I don't know if anyone else has caught on to this, but we're using VNC to contact my laptop over there, using a 4G hotspot by AT&T. I'm sorry, Scott. And then it's going up to that projector and then shooting up behind me. And I can't use any sort of meta equivalent on this Mac and make it happen over there. So, VGA cables in the works. Here's my hash system, I think. Come on. Alright. Check out that URL bar. Alright. Hello world. Hello monkeys. Now keep in mind when I actually hit this, I'm still going to do that 10-second wait. And it's actually going to give me a little bit more information, as the user would like, while that's happening. Processing. Holy cow. Something's happening. If I hit return at this point, or if I reload, or if I do anything, it's going to start processing again. But it's definitely going to know that data was already submitted. So all I want to do at this point is continue processing from where I left off. Hello, monkeys. So see this URL? That's a permalink to this entire process. If this were a transaction of any kind, what I have is that sitting there waiting for me. Let's go ahead and hit Control-R. Okay, I didn't have to process it because what I ended up doing at the very end of that get statement was setting process to true. Alright, that's all I needed to do. Everything's happening now. Let's go to smarter. Yeah, I can do this. Alright, processing smarter. This is going to take a while. Because it's very smart. This is longer than monkeys. Alright. I hit Control-R here again. That's the same thing. You know, something happened. And, you know, when I go back, I'm actually going to see the individual, you know, everything associated with all of that. These are permanent links into my experience with the website. And this is very important when you're dealing with order management and stuff like that. But not necessarily as important in your Facebook. And people are simply trying to log in, and you're trying to prevent the login process from happening 800 times. When it comes to encryption, when you're actually comparing passwords, it sometimes can be a very lengthy thing. I personally use a system called bcrypt, which is a very complicated hashing system. The entire password can be generated in JavaScript, and then the hash of that can be sent to the server. But it's a very lengthy process, so what I want to do is try to minimize that as much as possible by just saying to the login process, hey, all you want to do is take this hash and this password and store it in the user's session, and we'll deal with that when we get to the get part of this later on. That way things aren't funky if they try to hit backspace at all. We're actually just going back exactly where we needed to go. So what I'm doing here is the worst implementation of sessions possible. This web server assumes only one user, me, will ever use it at any given time. but it works out for the examples that I'm mentioning. So, is anyone familiar with? It's a Shane server. So, has anyone ever used Memcache or Redis? All right. There's the wrong kind of shaking of the head. So what these are is just distributed key stores. Actually, it can be a single key store somewhere. It stores, well, the best way to put it is memory for other programs. So you put it in between a whole bunch of processes that handle a whole bunch of complex data, and you just ask it what's going on every so often. You actually get shared information out of it. So I use Redis for a lot of things. It's great, so check it out. What I'm going to say real quick here is in my main handler, which is handling just that slash right there. You know what? I didn't show you something cool, but that's okay. I defined just a blank Redis server. I still have my template. Most of my logic is still in the get rather than in the post. And instead of storing a hash of hashes or anything else like that, I'm just setting this session variable for the user session. Actually, that would typically be a secured cookie, so that this was actually a little bit more secure. But I'm just setting a key somewhere in Redis land that's just user session. And what I'm trying to avoid here is changing the get request URL so that I don't have that huge ugly hash on the end of it. Because all I'm trying to do here is log in, or at least say monkey. And then, you know, this is crazy. Sidebar. Hide sidebar. Alright, I don't know if you guys can read that, but here it is, so memorize it quick. Where's the fun stuff? In the previous example, before I move on, I wanted to show you that in order to facilitate that sort of thing, I need to press down a lot. Alright, I end up with two what are called URL specs. I have one specifically for the get, which is just going to the main handler, and then one that's looking for that hash, and then assigning that to a variable that's passed to the function. So that actually adds a little bit more complexity there than I might have actually wanted. But here, it's beautiful, and I don't need it. Because I'm never expected to move away from localhost port 8888 or whatever I'm using. So, just the example. Alright, kill that because that doesn't exist anymore. Go back to hello monkey. Hello toaster oven. Alright, processing. This is the idea that we're still sitting here waiting 10 seconds for it to figure out that I want to say hello toaster oven. Alright, that's exactly what I wanted. Control R, toaster oven. Let's go ahead and change this back to monkey. Minky. So there's some differences in this technique that, quite honestly, differ from browser to browser. Chrome likes to be sneaky about it. Hello, Minky. All right, let's go back one page. It's still Minky. That's great. I kind of like that. But IE is not going to be the same. So it's not exactly something you want to depend on. But it does go ahead and do as much as it can to actually say, hey, you actually loaded this page. It's going to expire at this certain time. You just hit back on it. It didn't expire. Let's just go ahead and fill out the forms, and then give you the same content that you had before. So that's pretty much it for my presentation. I actually had some pretty fun slides, but I completely refused to use them because I got all excited.
Stick it to the man, Shane.
I stick it to myself. All right, so just to recap, we have the just hello world. So hello world with the processing, users can inadvertently attempt to submit data again and again and again and again. Ideally, the submission would be stored somewhere so that the user could, if they attempt to resend, the request will be matched up, and then other processing queues will be limited to a point so that you're only really processing one at a time and it takes over. It would be nice if we distinguished the form submission somehow with the processing. So the idea initially, use local hashes, change the URL, redirect to a better URL, which in turn references the actual submission itself. It doesn't rely on cookies at all, and it's very good for transactions and the like. You're going to end up wanting to use something very similar to pull up information about certain orders that you have as well. That way, when you're working in a large organization and you actually want to tell somebody, here is the URL versus here is the URL, you're going to have to log in, go to orders, select search for this order type, sort in reverse, and then select the second to last. You really want permanent URLs for that. So this is just one method of getting used to that whole idea. And then the fourth part of this was just using sessions via Redis. Redis stores the form submission itself. That way the GET process using a cookie can actually see that information as quickly as possible. Quite literally, the post for that lasted, dang it, I didn't enable logging, but it would have said 0.0000 seconds, which doesn't give the user a whole lot of time to hit Control-R during that entire thing. They can submit all they want, but I'm going to know how to refuse it because it's already been submitted. If the web server dies and comes back up when you're using a session-based backer, PHP uses files, MySQL, memcache. It's all configurable. And if that web server dies and comes back up, that session is still retained, which is a great advantage over trying to use permanent URLs that are temporary for doing this work. And then this approach works really well for logins, the state of the user session as it changes, rather than just requesting some specific processing. So as an added bonus, we get to keep the post process as simple as possible. Everything is now in the GET, which means there's a lot less functionality duplication. What I mean by that, I'm going to have to find that slide again, dang it, is that when I look at the original part of this, if this were more complicated, if I was actually doing some processing, everything in the GET here, I'd have to redo down at the end here as well. And that's, I mean, I can wrap it into a function, but why do I have to do that? I can actually keep this all in one place and not have to worry about how things change when they enter into those functions. This is kind of fun. And then, of course, we want to reduce the user frustration substantially. No more questions like how many times did I just buy that fragile Italian lamp? So thank you. Check out Tornado if you have a chance. Check out Picket for Tornado if you really want to play with sessions. And of course, never let your users down. That's all I got. No questions? Any questions?
How many monkeys did you guys
No monkeys were harmed. They were slow, but...
Well, 10 seconds. I mean, depending on what they're doing. That's...
If I'm making monkeys, that's pretty good.
In a clustered web server environment, would that res session be accessible by the available host?
Yes.
Okay. That's where I was thinking that would end up going.
In fact, I kind of got a little goofy on a project I'm working on right now. We have Redis that's actually storing a whole bunch of information. We have MongoDB that's storing a whole bunch of information. And then we have like 18 Python processes that are serving out the same information. That way we can do it as much as possible with as high a throughput as possible. Some information doesn't necessarily need to stay in the database or in Redis. I use Redis to actually say, hey, did information change? And if it did, bring it into the Python's process for each one of those, very replicated amounts of information. So that I can immediately serve it out from memory without ever actually having to do a query or any copy. I just preload it. So Redis is very simple. You can use it for locking, for popping. What's the thing?
Crunking.
Crunking.
Clowning.
I believe there's a crunk function somewhere. It's a very valuable asset when you're dealing with highly parallel processes from a very high level. When you're dealing with parallel processing, just use Erlang or something like that because you will not regret it. It won't let you down. It will let you down a little bit, but not always. So thank you guys for showing up to IndieInfoTech. I hope you guys had a fun time. And I'd like to thank Dan for actually making us experience something beyond the normal, a lot beyond the normal. And I really hope to see a lot of presentations like that. So thank you very much. And then of course Kevin for doing something that we should all be doing. And then Josh for being weird enough to try open source projects and then make them successful in his life.
Work, at least.
For cheap.
For nothing.
For nothing. Well, actually, your time, but then you're like kind of a freak. So. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.